Today, in the shipyards of Gdańsk, Poland, my blood sugars were reasonably stable as we wandered among these countless reminders of a history both brutal and hopeful. All of that in surroundings that are as atmospheric as any that we've seen so far. Hi, I'm Jeremy. Thanks for watching. A superb day of learning about history and seeing more of Gdańsk today. My first blood sugar was 143, so I recovered from last night very well, and me and Masio had breakfast in the Happy 7 hostel breakfast room. And then it was another walk along the Motława River behind the hostel back into Old Town. Everything was amazing all over again, but every street has a little different aspect to it, a different feel to it. Every single building, no matter how large or how small, was full of character. If you're looking for building number 7, you can't miss it. One street was full of amber vendors, and everywhere you look there are gargoyles and faces, things in English and Polish, a giant church, weathered signs explaining what you're seeing. It's an amazing place to just wander around and get lost for a couple of days. The birds certainly like it, and I got the impression that this man on the street TV interview was all about Gdańsk. Do you like it or love it? I assume they never asked me to be on TV. I always like it when we find ourselves in a place that Michael Palin has also been, just because I like his documentaries. Well, he's been here in Gdańsk, in Old Town. There he is. And we were here too. See? Cool. On the main drag, I checked my blood sugar. It was 193, still under 200. And after a quick, nutritious lunch of coffee and carrot cake, we walked out towards the Gdańsk shipyards, the birthplace of the Solidarity movement that helped end communism in Poland in the 1980s. On the way there, we saw this piece of concrete on the road, and I didn't think much of it at first, and then we realized this is a piece of the Berlin Wall. It's on display here as a monument to freedom. And later I did some research and found out that there are pieces of the Berlin Wall all over the world in display in countless cities and towns. And I thought, now wouldn't that be an interesting way to travel? Just get a big list of them and just go around the world and check off the ones that you see. Whatever your level of interest in the Berlin Wall or the fall of communism is, it would at least take you to a whole bunch of interesting places that you might not otherwise have been. I love the idea of having a list of places to go as an excuse to travel. Anyway, before we got to the shipyards, we wanted to go to this thing called the Roads of Freedom. It's some kind of monument or museum to something about freedom. We're looking forward to it. It seemed pretty interesting. Getting closer. Here it is. Ooh, that looks interesting. And closed. Okay, well, closed in the off season maybe? I mean, it's Thursday today. Why isn't this thing open? Well, here's what it looks like for us. But no matter, we continued on to the famous Gdańsk shipyards. Okay, yeah, there's Michael Palin again. Yes, you can interview the leader of the Solidarity movement, Lech Wałęsa, who later became the president of Poland. You have the power of the BBC behind you. I don't have anything like that. I'm doing all this by myself. The Solidarity movement began in about 1980. It was originally a series of strikes by the shipyard workers, and it all began here. As I said, they were led by this guy whose name is Lech Wałęsa. The E with the little thingy under it is pronounced like an E-N, Lech Wałęsa. That's what I think. Anyway, the Polish word for solidarity is Solidarność. And you may have seen the famous logo, this red kind of script writing of it. After looking at some of the monuments near the shipyards, all of them designed in a sort of a brutalist style, but heavy with meaning, hands and workers and strength, we rounded a bend and looked up this hill, and there it was. Solidarność. Actually, it was backwards, which is something like or something. Anyway, when you go around to the front of it, there it is, the logo. We played around in front of the logo a little bit and walked back to town. And lest you think this is all lovely and very touristy, the walk back to town, the one that I chose anyway, was not particularly beautiful, but I kind of liked it. Had some kind of character to it. Unlike most tourists, I don't mind stuff like this. But I wasn't prepared for what we saw next. As we cut through this little courtyard that leads right to our hostel, on the brick wall we saw these little pieces of stone, these little rectangular pieces of stone that had fingers in them, like fingerprints. And I thought at first it was some kind of art project or something that some school kids had done or something. And then I saw this big sign that said something in Polish, had pictures of people lined up on the wall, and it said 1939. And I realized this was something probably very ugly and violent. And it is. This was one of the, or maybe the first act of World War II, in which a bunch of workers at the post office were rounded up by Germans and murdered. The stones with the fingertips in them represent how they were lined up against the wall. A hugely important monument right here in this obscure little courtyard, which was also like a parking lot for some offices, just meters from our hostel. World War II began right here. Back in the room, my blood sugar was 74. I had some cookies and we waited for dinner, which was at this place called Buda. Not Polish, it was Indian, but I like any good food. I had mutton biryani, which is impossible to take a good shot for. So I took a big Humalog shot and hoped for the best. The mutton biryani, full of sticky, thick rice full of carbs, was very, very tasty. The place was quaint and decorated very nice. We had some colorful sauces that I made little smiley faces in. I wonder if the waitress noticed. And our last stroll through Old Town was here at night after dinner. And Old Town is just as scenic at night in Gdańsk. It's a little bit different. Things are lit up differently. But wow. Back at the hostel I had another shot and some cookies. Then we went to the hostel bar and me and Maceo talked about what to do. We don't really have any plans for this trip, just a vague outline of the countries we want to go to. So we talked for a while about how long to stay in Poland, what to do. And we decided that tomorrow we're going to go to this town called Malbork. After all this, my blood sugar before bed was 244, which is not good, but not as bad as it could be. Took a Humalog shot and we went to sleep. Well, our time in Gdańsk has been refreshing and cleansing and very, very fun. I do feel kind of a solidarity with this place. Good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is the sense of history everywhere in Gdańsk. I'm starting to really learn about World War II and about European history on an even larger scale. You can read Wikipedia and find things out, but it's much better if you actually go to a place and see it for yourself. The bad thing is that the Roads to Freedom thing was closed. Traveling in the off-season is a gamble. Diabetes thoughts for today. My average reading today was the exact same as yesterday, 164. And the trip average hasn't changed either. It's also still 192. Tomorrow is day 30. This trip is a month old. We'll be in Malbork looking at this gigantic UNESCO World Heritage Site castle, and we're going to be almost the only people there. Plus, I ate some donuts that have flies on them. Hey, I was hungry.